Throughout history, humanity has sought answers to the greatest of mysteries: what happens after death? From ancient civilizations to modern studies of near-death experiences, a recurring pattern emerges, a hidden mystery in ancient texts that could reveal what awaits us beyond the veil of existence. But what if I told you that there are ancient books that explain in detail what happens in the transition between life and death? Manuscripts forgotten by time contain astonishing descriptions of the states of the soul, the paths it traverses, and the secrets that only a few initiates have managed to decipher. We will delve into the enigma of these books, exploring their content, their origins, and their impact on various spiritual traditions. We will discover what the wise say about the process of death, how consciousness separates from the body, and what revelations have been passed down through the ages about the fate of the soul. What you are about to hear is not a mere theory, but the compendium of esoteric knowledge that has been preserved and protected in the most select circles of sacred knowledge. Are you ready to uncover what really happens when we leave this world? Since the dawn of humanity, the mystery of death has fascinated philosophers, mystics, and seekers of truth. Different cultures have tried to decipher what occurs when the soul leaves the body, leaving behind only an empty shell. For many, death is not an end, but a transition, a passage to another reality. One of the most enigmatic and revealing texts about this process is the Book of the Dead, an ancient Egyptian compendium that describes in great detail the journey of the soul through the duat. This manuscript, found in the tombs of pharaohs and priests, narrates how the spirit must undergo multiple trials and confront supernatural entities to prove its purity before the judgment of Osiris. The Egyptians believed that those who passed this test achieved eternal life, while the unworthy were consumed by dark. But Egypt is not the only civilization that documented this transition. In Tibet, the lamas compiled an equally enigmatic text, the Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This manuscript details the various states of consciousness experienced by the soul after death, and how the deceased's perception can be shaped by their emotions, fears, and desires. According to this tradition, the intermediate state known as Bardo is a unique opportunity to break free from the cycle of rebirth, or conversely, in Hermetic and alchemical tradition, death is seen as a transformation, a process akin to the transmutation of lead into gold. Ancient initiates believed that death is nothing more than a change of vibration, a shedding of physical ties to reach more subtle dimensions of being. This idea is also present in the works of philosophers like Plato, who in his Phaedo argued that true reality lies beyond the material and that death is simply the return of the soul to its divine origin. Even in Judeo-Christian tradition, there are references to this transition. In the Divine Comedy, Dante describes the realms of the beyond, hell, purgatory, and paradise, as reflections of the states of the soul after death. In Jewish mysticism, the Zohar speaks of a process where the soul must shed the layers of impurity accumulated in earthly life before accessing higher spheres. Through these texts and doctrines, we can find a common thread. Death is not the end, but a journey, a transition, a trial that each of us must face sooner or later. And if the ancients left behind such detailed writings about this process, what secrets could they reveal about what really happens when we cross the threshold? If death is not the end, but a transition, what exactly happens when we leave this world? The sacred texts, esoteric traditions, and near-death experiences seem to converge into a series of stages that the soul undergoes. Shedding the physical body, the ancient Egyptians described this moment as the opening of the Ka, the vital energy that separates from the body and begins its journey through the duat. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is mentioned that consciousness experiences a flash of pure light, the essence of ultimate reality. However, many souls do not recognize it and become trapped in the confusion of their own ego. Modern near-death experiences have documented accounts in which people describe a sensation of floating out of their body, observing their physical form from above, feeling a deep peace, or in some cases, terror and confusion. Some traditions assert that at this moment, a separation of the subtle bodies occurs, and depending on the soul's vibration, it may ascend to higher planes. One of the most recurrent elements in descriptions of post-mortem transit is the experience of the tunnel of light. This symbol appears in multiple traditions, from Christian mysticism to Hinduism. It is said to be the opening of an energy channel that connects the physical plane with higher dimensions. The Tibetan Book of the Dead explains that, at this point, the soul encounters different manifestations of its own mind. Illuminated souls can traverse the tunnel and unite with universal consciousness, but those still attached to their earthly identity may reject the light and be dragged into intermediate states of confusion and shadow. Ancient cultures described a process in which the soul is confronted with its own actions. In Egypt, the judgment of Osiris consisted of weighing the heart of the deceased on a scale against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth and balance. If the heart was light, the soul could access Aru, the paradise of the righteous. If it was heavy, it was devoured by Ammit, the soul eater. Curiously, people who have had near-death experiences have reported something similar, a panoramic review of their life, where they experience their actions not only from their perspective, but also feeling the impact they had on others. This suggests that death is not an escape, but a moment of revelation in which the soul is confronted with the truth of its existence. But what happens after this judgment? Where does the soul go? There are different destinations depending on its level of evolution. If the judgment of the soul is a mirror reflecting all our actions, emotions, and thoughts, then what comes next? Ancient traditions speak of different destinies for the soul, determined by its level of evolution and its connection to universal truth. In many spiritual doctrines, existence isn't simply divided into heaven or hell. Instead, multiple planes of reality are described, each with its own vibration and purpose. According to Tibetan Buddhism, in the earthly plane, or the realm of wandering spirits, many souls become trapped at this level due to their unfulfilled desires, fears, or attachments. These entities may linger as shadows in the physical world, influencing the living until they find a way to progress. The lower astral plane, known in some traditions as Sheol, or the lower bardo, is a place where souls experience confusion, fragmentation of their identity, or the repetition of their traumas. In modern terms, some describe it as a purgatory state, where the soul works through its attachments before being able to ascend in Gnostic traditions. Hermetic texts and Hindu mysticism describe elevated planes and realms of light in which awakened souls can continue their evolution. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, this would be Aru, the field of reeds where the righteous live in harmony. This raises a fundamental question: who or what determines where we go? The wise across all traditions agree on one thing: the mental and spiritual state at the moment of death is crucial. In Tibetan Buddhism, it is taught that the soul experiences visions that are manifestations of its own mind. If it surrenders to fear, it may be dragged into dark planes. If it recognizes the light as its true essence, it frees itself from the cycle of suffering. In the Hermetic philosophy, the law of vibration is discussed. Souls with dense thoughts and destructive emotions descend to darker planes, while those who have cultivated wisdom ascend toward the divine source. In Hinduism, the concepts of karma and dharma define the journey of the soul. Those who have cultivated a life in harmony with the universe can attain moksha, the liberation from the cycle of reincarnation. Here we arrive at one of the greatest enigmas of existence. Does the soul follow an endless cycle of rebirths, or can it reach a final state of enlightenment? Eastern teachings assert that reincarnation is an opportunity to correct mistakes, learn, and evolve. The Bhagavad Gita explains that the soul, like a person changing clothes, changes bodies in each life. However, not all traditions hold this view. In Christian esotericism, the possibility is mentioned that higher souls transcend to a union with the divine, while others must continue learning in different realms. In Sufism, there is talk of dissolution in the beloved, a state in which the soul returns to its origin and merges with universal consciousness. Gnostic texts describe that those who awaken to the truth can escape the archons, the controlling system of the material world, and return home. Some esoteric currents suggest that at the threshold of death, each soul faces one last choice: to ascend and unite with universal consciousness they left behind. Free will remains a key principle, even after death. The way we have lived, loved, and understood our existence influences our destiny beyond the threshold. But this leads us to an even more intriguing question. If death is merely a transition, how can we prepare for it in this life? If death is not the end, but a transition, then how we live determines the quality of that journey. It's not just about speculating what comes next, but about cultivating our awareness right now, so that when the time comes, we are prepared. Esoteric traditions agree that the weight of our emotions, attachments, and actions follows us beyond death. In the Bardo, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, mentions that the confusion after passing away comes from the mental state with which we depart. To avoid being swept away by fear or attachment, we must clean our energy while alive. Some practices for the purification of the soul may include daily meditation. Cultivating presence and mental clarity helps us recognize reality without fear when the transition arrives. The release of emotional burdens is essential. Forgiveness, both of others and of ourselves, is fundamental to avoid becoming trapped in dense emotions. Practices of detachment and reflection on impermanence help us let go of the fear of losing what we believe we possess. In Hermetic texts and many mystical philosophies, we are told that the greatest error of humanity is identifying solely with our body and ego. By expanding our consciousness, we can experience a reality beyond the physical, preparing us for what is to come. Ways to expand consciousness include exploring lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences. Some scholars of esotericism practice these techniques to familiarize themselves with states of consciousness, visualizing death as a transformation, not an end. In many cultures, meditations in which one imagines their own passing are used as a means of spiritual preparation. The study of sacred texts, from the Egyptian Book of the Dead to Gnostic teachings, reveals that each tradition provides maps of the afterlife that can serve as guides. The greatest secret revealed by the wise is that our daily life is already part of the soul's journey. Death is not an abrupt separation from existence, but the natural continuation of our state of being. Therefore, if we want a harmonious transition, we must begin to live with greater awareness and spiritual alignment. Now, there are some principles for a purposeful and aligned life. For instance, actions with intention. Every choice we make, every word we speak, and every thought we cultivate leaves a mark on our energy. Connection with the divine, whether through prayer, meditation, or serving others, strengthens our relationship with divinity and helps us remember our true nature. Service and compassion. Unconditional love is the highest vibration and acts as a passport to the higher realms after death. In many traditions, the moment of death is seen as a sacred opportunity, the instant when the soul can awaken to its true nature. Some cultures teach rituals and practices to assist the dying in this process, ensuring they cross over with peace and clarity. Some points to keep in mind for spiritually preparing ourselves for death include maintaining awareness. Many spiritual philosophies teach that the mental state at the moment of death influences the destiny of the soul. Guiding others in their transition, accompanying a loved one in their departure with love and serenity, can help their soul break free from fear. Creating a sacred space for the journey is important. In various cultures, the environment in which a person passes is prepared with incense, prayers, and guiding words to facilitate their journey. The true teaching of these sacred texts is that learning to die is, in essence, learning to live. When we understand that death is not the end, but a change of state, we begin to live more consciously, with more love, and with less fear. Now, the question lies with you. How do you choose to prepare for the greatest journey of all? Throughout history, wise individuals from different traditions have attempted to unravel the ultimate mystery: what happens after death? Some have left detailed maps, others have communicated metaphors and hidden teachings, but they all agree on one fundamental point. It's not about death, but how we live. If death is a transition, an awakening, or a liberation, then the key is not to fear it, but to prepare for it. It is not the end, but a transformation, a threshold that we will all cross. And the true question is not what lies beyond, but how we choose to cross it. When we accept death as part of the journey, life takes on a deeper meaning. We become more aware of our choices, our emotions, and the energy we leave in the world. We understand that each day is an opportunity to align with our essence, to elevate our consciousness, and to live with greater purpose. The sacred texts teach us that those who die in peace live in peace, that those who transcend the fear of death transcend the fear of living, and that the key to a harmonious transition lies not in the last breath, but in how we breathe every moment of our existence. Now that you've discovered these ancestral teachings, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue living as if death did not exist, or will you begin to prepare your spirit for when the moment arrives? Will you remain trapped in the superficial, or will you seek to elevate your consciousness so that when the veil is lifted, you're ready to receive the truth with serenity and wisdom? Remember, death is not the end, but the great awakening. If this knowledge has resonated with you, share this message with those seeking answers. Subscribe to continue exploring the hidden secrets of the universe and leave your comment. What do you think happens after death? Are you ready to discover it?